Hey everyone, I'm Gilbert. I'm with OptionOneSolar, and today I'll be talking to Scott Thomas. Scott, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Scott Thomas. I'm the owner and CEO of OptionOneSolar and Chaparrosa Roofing.
So, Scott, what I'd like to talk about today is the One Big Beautiful Act. What was the One Big Beautiful Act, and how did it affect the solar industry?
So the One Big Beautiful Bill is, it's Trump's version of cutting a lot of waste and implementing funds where he feels it fits his agenda. And Trump's never been a big fan of solar and incentivizing solar and EVs and stuff like that. So Trump cut a lot of that stuff and spending and incentives out of this bill. So, as far as the solar, field, that's what it does. It cuts a lot of that incentive money.
And so, can you kind of just explain the timeline and deadlines associated with like the Act's solar provisions?
Yeah, sure. So as far as, residential got hit the worst. The tax credit, which is a 30% incentive, of the whole amount you spend, includes financing, and if you have to do repairs or structures, basically it ends this year on December 31st. So if you, anybody that's interested in doing solar, and you can get the tax credit, you definitely want to get in this year. And you want to get in as fast as possible, because what happens is, typically install times are about 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And so you need to get in there in October at the latest to get in there to we can guarantee we can get you in by the end of the year.
I imagine that affects like the financing of solar installations overall, like immensely.
Yeah, it does. Every year I've been in solar for a long time, since 2008. There's always something threatening solar, and we find a way to get through it. NEM 1 to NEM 2 to NEM 3, and so the 30% incentive has always been really helpful to help solar growth in the whole U.S. and especially California. But it's time where I wish they would have ramped it out and phased it out over a couple years, and but it is what it is. And so what we'll do without that'll force the manufacturers and the batteries and the solar panels to drop their pricing even more in California, because it dictates such a big part of the market. And when that happens, and with the batteries being mass produced now, there's a lot of competition. So it already is happening. Prices on batteries are already coming down.
And I imagine there's a huge difference on how homeowners have to prepare for these incentives expiring versus commercial business owners having to prepare. They both have to take different tracks of, I have to prepare for this. And business owners, if I'm not mistaken, there's like a timeline up to December 2027.
Back on residential, this we'll find a way, and the returns on investments were like between 8 and 12%, with the tax credit. There's still going to be 8% to 10% because the rates of electrical. So it's still going to make a lot of sense, okay? And so with commercial, they have a different timeline. So commercial, you have to be installed, or you have to be in contract by the end of this year, okay? And then potentially, depending on if you safe harbor materials, which means that you pay for materials, and Trump is real smart with that stuff. He wants to make sure that you have skin in the game, that you actually paid for this and procured the equipment, and then you have potentially up to 4 years to install this equipment, But right now, the end of 2027 is what it looks like.
Okay. So overall, because so much changed within just one bill, is there any emerging technologies that you see coming up in the solar industry that could almost circumvent what's happening? Is there going to be an increase in ROI from technologies you've seen?
Well, I think the modules are getting more efficient. I'm working with a manufacturer on a solar tile, and that'll be another episode we'll get into.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a big game changer. And then one thing to go back on the commercial side of things, Trump did reenact and extend the bonus depreciation credit. And so if you have a depreciation, you can do that in 1 year, bonus it 100%, versus over 5 years or 30 years, for like real estate. So that's a big deal, because you get that money first year. And if you get, and if you use the domestic content, you get another 10%. There's just lots of ways for commercial for it to make sense on the financials. It really it still makes a lot of sense.
And in about 5 to 10 years from now, where would you see the solar industry being at?
Well, I see the solar industry, developing. I mean, solar is here to stay. It's the cheapest form of energy on Earth right now, and I see that it's always going to be here. We're going to keep doing more and more solar, and like California, I mean, the United States there's only like a 5% saturation. So I mean, there's 95% market share still, and so as that gets mainstream and more adopted, prices get lower. It'll naturally be installed more. And it'll be eventually you'll see it like this be like another trade. You'll see it like roofing or a better analogy would be like like air conditioning, right? Mm-hmm. You're gonna have air conditioning. You gotta get a tune-up. You gotta get new filters here and there. Check your system. And solar will not be in the same way because you're gonna have to look and make sure you have all the electrical connections are good, mm-hmm. and just tune-up and panel cleaning and things like that. And with all the other players, there's so many solar companies that went out of business over the years, and like big ones, Sonova, and big ones. I mean, they just went out of business. Hundreds of them, 20,000 people lost their jobs, right? So there's a lot of orphaned, solar customers that did solar and don't have a company to go to anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's for the operations and maintenance. We're getting a lot of calls, and so we developed a team a vision to handle that. And so now we're starting to help people that don't have a solar company that can help them anymore. So that's going to be a whole nother avenue of business, in the future for solar companies.
And so I imagine these businesses, they didn't really consider like these new challenges or new legislations to affect them. How did Option One navigate not only past challenges, but the big beautiful bill before it even passed? Like, was there a game plan going into it?
Yeah, we've never, our model has never relied on the tax credit. Helps. We get that. And believe it or not, a lot of our customers don't even get the tax credit, because they're self-employed and they write things off, so they just don't have that. They can use it. There's ways to use it. But the bottom, as far as us, we've always, our margins, like again, I say this, and we tell people this, we're not the cheapest. So, and that's how we stay in business. We figure we're going to go back a couple times, for some kind of issue, a communication issue, a loose connection, it happens. And so we build that into our warranty, and it's covered, and we charge enough to maintain and sustain our business, for 25 years, right? Mm-hmm. We got to honor that warranty, and so a lot of people get into solar, and the equipment, and the prices are high, and then everybody thinks it's a home run, right? But it's really not. Because you gotta be able to go ahead and maintain warranties and go out there, and then they all of a sudden, 2 years later, they have all these installs. Now they have to go back and service, these customers, and they don't have the funds or the resources to do it, right? We have 5,000 plus customers, and we're we have a whole team of people. We have a team of 3 in the field that goes out and does service calls all the time. And it's just like little things like a bad optimizer, or and a lot of times it's customer issues where the communications are disconnected, right? What happened? I don't know. Nothing happened. We can't figure it out. We go out there. Well, it's unplugged. Why is it unplugged? Oh, yeah, my nephew was here, but the PlayStation plugged in. Stuff like that, And it's a lot of customer error, But we still have to deal with it, and go out there and then service them,
I really like that kind of attitude, that business model. Very much like how you said, I think the 30% tax credit helps, but a lot of people don't even get into it. More so, I feel like it would probably be a bad business model to rely on this 30% tax credit.
It would. Well, and here's an example. Here's how powerful the solar return on investment is. So let's say our average system somewhere, I think around 32,000 for like a 10K system with 1 Tesla Powerwall. So basically, take that 32,000, right? And let's just, for argument's sake, let's just say that the tax credit's $9,000, right? Okay, so $9,000, and now that gets them down to, what is that? At 24,000-ish, Okay, so 25, and then you take that, okay, versus if they stay with the electric company, they're going to be paying, $200,000 to $300,000 over the lifetime with the average increase of 7.2%, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I still think 25 is, better than 300,000, right? Yeah. Okay, let's say the tax credit goes away. Well, now I'm paying 32. Well, 32 is still better than 300,000, right? Yeah. That's the way you look at it. Yeah, it's nice. It's like the interest rates, right? We were spoiled. when we have 3% rates, right? I wish I had those now, right?
Yeah.
But we don't. But we're still buying houses, right? We still got, life goes on. Same with the tax credit. Yeah, we got it. It was a great incentive, and more people should have done it and took advantage of it, But but it still makes a lot of sense.
So I imagine there's going to be some homeowners who want to take advantage of it and want to oh, hey, this is going away. I want this now. How would you advise people to go about reaching out about solar?
Well, number one, I would say, there's some good reputable solar companies out there, and I have me personally, I think we're the best, because I say that because I think we really try to be, and we go above and beyond, from my father's history, and bringing that, that high level of, quality. You want to go with a contractor that's been in business a long time, not somebody that's got into it, and that's my opinion, okay? And you want to go with a person that's got really good reviews, that have proven themselves, and someone that can get you in, because you're going to have to start now. If you want to get in by the end of the year, you got to start the process now, and to have your chance. You start getting in there after October, you're going to be very, very tight, and because the cities also get bogged down, and so the utility is doing your application. So everything gets it's like a bottleneck. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so the sooner you get in, you're in front of you're a lot further in that bottle.
Yeah, so for homeowners, they got to get it done before the end of the year.
Yeah.
But commercial business owners have a longer time.
They still need to be in contract by the end of the year. So they don't have to be installed, but they need to figure out what they're going to do, and they need to get in the contract and start looking at procuring equipment, and getting in and they just have to have a certain amount of work done to be able to maintain that approval.
What's the next step? What is Option One going to do past this?
Well, solar's here to stay. I mean, solar's gonna keep going, and our commercial, we do the carports. We have a fabrication division, which it helps them get panels on roofs that don't fit solar, right? But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with on commercial side, a residential is more of an emotional sale. You're saving you're saving $100 a month maybe, right? Or maybe you're breaking even, but the long term savings, you're saving $250,000, right? It's long term, and and so it's more of an emotional thing because it's payment driven, okay, up front, okay. But when you have a person that's technical, that's finance savvy, they get it right away, and when you have commercial, you're typically we're going to be dealing with CFOs or CEOs that understand ROIs, right? And they're looking at, okay, how do I lower my overall expenses? When this is one avenue to lower expenses. So it's a different conversation. It's a technical sale versus a emotional sale. And when you get into the commercial, and we're doing deals, big deal. Sometimes we're doing $2 million deals they're saving the people like $9 million over lifetime alone, right? And it makes a lot of sense. So it's easy because the numbers they speak for themselves. The numbers don't lie. It's a very plain. They got there's some of these things they got a 5-year payback, and the returns on investment are greater than 20%.
Wow. Thank you so much, Scott. This was a pleasure, and I really want to do more of these. Really hash these out.
Hopefully, I answer all your questions, and like I said, we'll start doing more of these, and we'll get I'll get better at it, and then we'll start giving people more information that helps hopefully it helps them.
Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below any questions that you have, and we'll see you in the next one.